Hi folks, Dan the Wolfman here, combative and street jiu-jitsu instructor. I'm BJJ Fanatics, martial arts expert, and huge ballistic nerd. This is my third video on 30 Super Carry, the new cartridge. And today, what I'm going to point out, dear Federal and other manufacturers, 30 Super Carry needs light recoil, 30 Super Carry light recoil loads for this cartridge to be successful long-term, in my opinion. Because right now what it is something that's almost being marketed as almost good as 9mm. They're saying better than 380, almost as good as 9mm. In a way that's kind of true. For the money and the less tissue crush, the less expansion, that's not something I'm personally going to give up. And they're missing the huge niche. And what the huge niche is the huge disparity between 380 ballistics man-stopping power and 9mm. The power of 380 is really very low. You're not going to get both deep enough penetration and good uniform 1.5 times initial diameter expansion. 380 doesn't have both. It can do one or the other. It can't do both. XTPs can go deep enough and expand just a little bit, and most of the other ones don't expand. And that's the problem with 380. 38, very, very difficult to find a load that's actually going to expand a decent amount from just a 2-inch snub barrel, and especially less than that, 1 7/8. So the big problem is, to me, is for recoil sensitive shooters, newer shooters, the girlfriend gun. And 30 Super Carry needs to become full power loads for, not trying to be sexist, the more experienced shooter, and the girlfriend cartridge, or for the newer shooter, you need light recoil loads. There is a huge niche in there as far as foot-pounds of energy needed to get deep enough and get 1.5 times expansion. I've crunched the numbers, and I think that this should totally be possible. So I'm going to give you some data from Lucky Gunner on 380 and 38, and then tell you what I think the niche is that Federal needs to market light recoil loads. You could probably, they already have Remington UMC. You should probably do a Remington green and white box, then light recoil load, 30 Super Carry light recoil training round. Okay, that way for newer shooters, that's what you can train with. And they should probably do a light recoil golden saber round. Let's start with how kind of pathetic 380 is, and I say 380 sucks, and especially in real short barrels it does. This is from Lucky Gunner from a 3¼ inch barrel, not your 2.8 inch barrel LCP. 88 grain HTP, 840 feet per second is 138 foot-pounds. These, I'm going to give you three of the better loads in 380 and 38. 88 grain HTP, which is good because occasionally it will tumble. 840 feet per second, only 138 foot-pounds of energy. 90 grain Hornady XTP, 910 feet per second, 165 foot-pounds. Goes deep enough and just slight expansion, usually, if you get it. And that's from a longer barrel, this 3¼ inch Glock 42. 102 grain Golden Saber, 859 feet per second, 167 foot-pounds of energy. That's not great because, again, you're not getting both penetration and expansion. Even from 38, from a 2-inch or shorter barrel snub nose, that's very, very hard. It's too bad that 30 inch aren't all made with 2.5 inch barrels, 3-inch barrels. It would, a lot of loads, plus P loads would do a lot better. 110 grain plus P critical defense is from a 2-inch K6S, I believe. 110 grain plus P critical defense, 945 feet per second, 280 foot-pounds of energy. Okay, the standard's only 180 foot-pounds. So what the problem is that you either have to like go 380, and most newer shooters, smaller statured men, females, even find LCPs too snappy. Okay, or Glock 42's little better, but little too snappy. Okay, direct blowback kind of action almost, and it's just not great in the lighter platforms. Or you go to 9mm, and then you got a lot more power, 330 to like 400-ish foot-pounds, depending on the loads, right? You can go plus P, plus P+. And then even the training rounds are too snappy for most newer shooters. This is the niche that needs to be filled, where the cartridge is. Federal did too good a job getting ballistic efficiency out of a short barrel, and that's how it should be marketed. Look at my other two videos. But it's still not going to have as much as expansion, as much tissue crush. I've calculated the numbers, and the tissue crush is okay-ish, and that's from their 5-inch data. They're acting like that's from the shorter inch barrel, and it's not 4-inch to 4-inch. Look at my my second video on it. So the niche is what is good that is something you could feel good to train somebody else on, that isn't a constant shooter like I am, that doesn't shoot once a week, that has better power than 380, better power than 38, and 38 because it's a revolver is going to recoil more because of the bore axis and the grip and the angle and all that. And so most people cannot handle even 38 training rounds, let alone a plus P hollow point, unless they get wad cutter, semi-wad cutter, lower velocity ammo. Back to 38, 125 plus P golden saber, 877 feet per second is 230 foot-pounds. And these are the better loads that I would carry in a 38, or 130 grain HST standard pressure, 824 feet per second, 196 foot-pounds. Why did Federal go? Because they get so much expansion out of that. Everyone's saying, wow, it's got 13 inches of penetration in clear gel. Guess what? That'd probably only be 10.5 inches or less in real gel, i.e. an FBI failure. People don't understand the difference between real gel, clear gel, and why 4-layer is definitely needed, because that's what bodies are like, okay? They just don't get it. So 30 super light recoil rounds is what's needed from Federal Vista, that owns everyone, including Remington now, other than Hornady, that they need to make. So if you crunch the numbers, which I've done, 90 grain light recoil rounds at 1120 feet per second is 251 foot-pounds of energy, instead of the 322 they're going to get with the HST out of the 3.1 inch Shield Plus barrel. 322 foot-pounds, that's not bad. It's actually higher from that Shield barrel. If you look at my other video, than the standard pressure 124 grain HST, it's higher foot-pounds of energy at 306. The Plus P is higher than the 30 Super Carry HST round from that shorter barrel though. Again, it's going to be pretty snappy, similar to 9mm. Some saying it's snappier. I believe that's initial acceleration. It's getting faster, quicker, and all of that. So 90 grain, 1120. That's a pretty good thing to market. 251 foot-pounds of energy, or 93 grain hollow point at 1100 feet per second is 250 foot-pounds. So this is 77.5, 78% of the full power load. So you're reducing it by about 22%. And if you reduce it by 22%, it should still have enough slide velocity to cycle efficiently, I believe, or maybe bump it up a little bit if that's not the case. But pretty close to this is going to be much less recoil than 322 foot-pounds and probably 310 in the training rounds, 305 in the training rounds, foot-pounds of energy. 250, 251, that's going to be just about perfect in the balance, because again, it's going to be a 9mm guns. I don't know if it's really going to work in the true subcompacts. I think it's going to work okay in the Shield Plus. That's debatable. But then that's kind of Shield Plus with a 30 Super Carry light recoil rounds to train a new shooter with, to give to the girlfriend, and then I give them a round that I know can perform well, a lot better than 380, better than 38, better than 38 plus P from a short barrel, and not quite 9mm, but in a nice, good in-between area. But really, it's the penetration and 1.5 times expansion. So the goal, Federal, wasn't to make it almost as good as 9mm and publish the marketing data to kind of make it seem more that way than it really is. The real goal should be to fill this niche, this huge void between 380 and 9mm. I don't really like 380 unless you're a nurse and you can only get away with carrying LCP. Most people can get away with carrying a new micro compact or a CM9, okay? But if you can't, a little 380 and the Max, the Ruger LCP Max, that's a great choice. But 380 ballistically, I have a video on 380 sucks. Go through it. Really kind of does, because you don't get what you want. Penetration and expansion and enough of a tissue crush number, which most of you won't understand, to actually make the bad guy rethink his life choices and desanguinate him faster to stop being a deadly threat if you weren't lucky enough to hit a small percentage chance of hitting that central nervous system. So the goal should be, instead of 15.5 inches of penetration, which they're claiming like that's real gel. If it's true, that's great. Look at my other video. They're claiming 15.5 in the full power 30 Super Carry HST. They're claiming 15.5 inches. They're claiming 53 expansion. Of course, what they don't tell you is that's actually from the 5-inch barrel. But the goal with the light carry, because it's a small diameter, I still believe you could get 13.5 inches of penetration in real gel. Mind you, a 124 HST, according to Vista's data, maybe before they changed it, we don't know, Federal, I'd like to hear from you, Vista, used to only get 12 inches of penetration, the regular 124 HST. The Plus P 13 inches of penetration and much greater expansion, okay? So if you could get 13.5, because a smaller diameter with a higher sectional density, deep enough to penetrate, and 1.5 times expansion is the goal of 0.47, that's very good. That's still 2.34 cubic inches, not nearly as good as 9mm, better than all the 380s, and pretty similar to the very bestest 38 plus P loads. But again, in a semi-automatic pistol with a slider reciprocating, going to have less recoil. So that should be very attainable. If you can get to 14 and you can get to 49 expansion, your tissue crush, the bigger expansion, because the squared is way, way bigger. And people don't understand the difference between expansion and calibers and tissue crush. But that would be a very effective round at 250, maybe to 265 foot-pounds of energy, and be able enough to cycle the regular guns reliably. And then if they want to build up and try full power loads, training loads, that's great. If I want to carry it, I can put my full power 30 super carry loads in it. I could buy a Shield Plus and hope that the girlfriend or the boyfriend or whatever your situation is likes it, and I know that this has a nice range. And so I think for long term, because of the price involved, why would I give up more tissue crush just for a couple rounds? No, I'm not gonna go to even less effective, somewhat less effective than 9mm, just for a couple extra rounds and something that's already a standardly awesome capacity, including a micro compact. So why would I do that when the ammo price is twice as much? Unless if I know it has this options, and then I'd buy a Shield Plus, and if it's good for me and it's good for her, if it's good for me and good for my friend and it's good to train people on. So Federal, I think maybe a Remington green and white box light recoil load, and maybe a golden saber, whether you make that a bonded or a black belt almost bonded. They've had some interesting marketing with golden sabers before on the box, BBP, like it's bonded, but it's really not, and all that. Either way, golden sabers prove themselves over the years, even if they shed their jackets. That would be a good load. A 90 grain, 93 grain XTP or critical defense. Also, I am quite sure at these velocities with that diameter, being the ballistic nerd that I am, they will get good expansion and be highly effective. Let me know what you think below. Does 30 Super Carry need a light recoil load off the bat, a training round, and a good hollow point off the bat? And Federal could do this to make sure it fills the niche and gives people what really most people need. Let me know in the comments. Thanks. Please subscribe and check out my competitive street jiu-jitsu DVD on BJJ Fanatics.